You still fuck?
Excuse me?
You and David, you still have sex?
Well,
You don't have to answer this question if you don't want.
No. I'm perfectly okay answering. It's just that, well, yeah, we do occasionally have sex.
Occasionally. What does it mean?
What does that mean? It means occasionally. Obviously, as a relationship evolves, some things happen less frequently than they once did. And I'm not just talking about sex. Lots of things change.
So you have an open relationship?
No? Not as far as I know.
Wow. I can't imagine no sex life. I mean, that would kill me.
Hey everyone, it's Allen Ramos. Okay, so the film Sublet tells a story of an unlikely bond between a travel writer who goes to Tel Aviv and the young man who he ends up, subletting this apartment from. It's such a great story. The film will be out in limited release on June 11th, and then on July 9th, it's going to be available on video on demand. Today, I'm so excited to be bringing in the amazing writer and director, Eytan Fox, and of course, the great John Benjamin Hickey, who plays Michael. How are you both?
Very good. Very happy to be here.
Same. Well, like I said, this film is so great. I'm a huge fan, and it's like it has stuck with me. So, Eytan, since this is really your project, what was the motivation? Why did you want to tell this story? About Michael and this young guy. It's so great.
Well, and John has heard me say this a few times before, but I use my films as I make a film once every few years, and I use the films as some kind of a therapeutic experience where I say, okay, so what's happening in my life? And I want to deal with those issues and make a film out of them and share, my thoughts and feelings about. So I was turning 50 when we started working on Sublet, and I realized, okay, so I am a married gay man. I have no children. I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli, I'm a filmmaker. Who am I? How did this come to be? And I was starting to deal with all these issues. I said, how are we going to take these things and turn them into a coherent story, a film that people want to see? And I said, okay, let's take this guy, this older 50-something-year-old man, me, and introduce him to a younger gay man who is Jewish, Israeli, a filmmaker, an artist, and see what happened.
So you wrote a book once. What was it about?
New York City in the late 80s, early 90s.
It's so depressing. Why does everything always has to go back to that?
Well, I didn't go back. I was there. I sort of wrote the book in real time.
That's more or less what I went through when I started working on the film before I approached the wonderful John Benjamin Hickey.
Well, speaking of the wonderful John Benjamin Hickey, John, thinking about your amazing career, film, television, so much more, what was it about this story that, really resonated with you and made you, want to jump on board and play Michael?
Could actually just give the same answer Eytan just did, but won't, because we want to stay exciting. But it was about, I loved where this man was, Michael, this character I play. And it was a deeply challenging thing because on the surface, he seemed to be a lot like me. He was 50-something years old. He was a long-term New Yorker. He was in a long-term relationship. He was feeling a kind of middle-age malaise, an existential crisis based on just life, but also a couple of things that have happened to him that we wouldn't want to give away because they're revealed very slowly and beautifully in the movie. But what was extraordinary is that it was about a gay man of a certain age, just like me, but the buck stopped. I always say this, the buck stopped at my pants, because when the brilliant costume designer showed me the kind of the khakis that Eytan wanted me to wear in the movie, I was like, khakis? I said, Eytan, I would never wear khakis. And Eytan would be like, yeah, John, but you're not Michael. That's what's going to be so challenging and wonderful for you in this part. So that's a long way of saying it was about a man who's trying to figure out what it meant to be gay at his age, and he meets somebody who is also figuring out what it means to be gay at his age, and they're two completely different things.
I really don't get this. How is that any way to meet somebody?
A quick way.
And this wonderful romance. But when I say romance, I don't mean it's a May-December love story. It's completely different and much more surprising and wonderful than that. But this friendship ensues between them in which they teach each other kind of a new definition of gay.
I love that. I mean, that's the headline right there, new definition of gay. Because I think that's great, because I think I was talking to another actor the other day, and I was like, I think so many people think, okay, you come out and you're gay, and then like that's it, like everything's done. And I said, no, you can still be evolving as you grow up and get older and all of that. But Eytan, so this premise of the film basically is this character Michael comes to Tel Aviv, and they basically have 4 to 5 short days. So how did you kind of decide on that kind of in terms of the timeline? Because it is really interesting, because if you think about, someone you could meet and the 4 days that you could spend with them, I mean, I guess you could get a really deep bond, but these two characters definitely do.
Yeah, I think it's a mechanism that people sometimes use in films, is that you have just like a weekend or a few days to get to know each other, to get closer, to establish a relationship, to learn something about life. And so, so we use that. And sometimes that's what happens in life. You come to a place and you're there for 3 days, so you need the things to happen. And you have to understand who you are, what the place is, what the people are.
All those the must-sees?
Yeah. If you are a Jewish princess on her birthright tour, yeah. Come, I will show you the best pomegranate juice in Tel Aviv.
בוודאי, 30 שקלים בבקשה.
You have small change, maybe?
And I also saw a few of these travel journalists who write these columns. They have these things, like 48 hours in Tel Aviv, you have these, and then people have to learn about a city in 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever it is, And so that was part of what we were thinking.
John, thinking about the backdrop of this, Tel Aviv, because it's a place that I've heard so much about, that I would love to go to. What was that experience like for you to kind of get to be all over town and really get in the city?
Eytan's heard me talk about this. I mean, it was very meta, the whole thing, because as Michael sort of explores the city, I explored the city. What Eytan was saying, that thing about 48 hours in Tel Aviv, and a writer is going to write something that's going to tell you, it's going to penetrate the heart of a city. Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it? And I think one of the things that's so great about that relationship is Tomer, the young guy, is like, what, you're going to go, you have 4 days here and you think you're going to learn about this city? No, you're not going to learn about this city. I'm going to show you, and upends all of his notions of what it means to be an intrepid traveler.
Oh, how much fun did you have, and what was it like to
Oh my God, that question. Oh, dude. First of all, that city, I mean, you feel everything there. It's a very electric charge in the air based on a lot of stuff. God knows the news lately, there's a charge in the air. Sometimes the foundations of the city feel not entirely secure. You're constantly seeing and experiencing architecture, people, politics, culture in the most palpable way. I'm sure New York was like that when I first came to New York, but this city is alive in a way that is deeply palpable. And because Eytan is such a brilliant and efficient filmmaker, they have this wonderful European sensibility there. We really didn't work that late that often. So fortunately, I was able to get off work and go to the restaurants that populate that great city. And as I've said many times, it is the great food destination on the planet. So boy, did I eat my way through Tel Aviv. It's a great place to be a tourist. And I didn't have 48 hours or 5 days. I had, what did we shoot it in, like 5 weeks, Eytan?
Yeah.
So I had a really good amount of time to deeply experience that extraordinary place.
Lots of great food, but no onions, right? No onions. Yeah. He doesn't like the onions. Eytan, thinking about this film and your previous works, what is it like for you to see your country, react to these stories and also just move into this more progressive place for LGBTQ people and acceptance?
Yeah, so it has, I mean, Israel has gone through like a most amazing process. When I started making films in 1990, it was very difficult to raise money for a film that had gay themes, gay characters, a gay love story. It was very difficult. When I made a film called Yossi and Jagger, which was about a love story between two Israeli soldiers, the Israeli army said, we're never going to give you money to do this. We're going to fight you till you, decide not to make the film and so on. We made it on our own without the Israeli army. When I made the sequel, Yossi, the Israeli army was calling me to say, can we help you in any way, matter, or form? So things have changed. I'm proud to say I've been part of that change with my films, and I insisted on making film after film with gay characters, with gay love stories and so on. So things have changed dramatically. If you told me when I was a young man in Jerusalem in the early 1980s that, we'd have gay ministers or gay members of parliament in Israel, I think you were crazy. Openly, gay men and women in the Israeli parliament. Israel has changed in amazing ways. And think of it, this is a religious, conservative, I don't know, a lot of problems in its, psyche. It's a very difficult place. And this, revolution was very successful, as far as LGBTs go in Israeli society, in Tel Aviv more specifically.
Add to that. Let me just add that Eytan is modest in his how he has contributed to its movement forward. He's been one of the key players in moving that city, that country forward. And what's ironic is his movies are political, not because they're political movies. It's all matters of the heart, which is what moves people, and I remember when we were filming the movie, I wanted to put anti-Trump stuff in the movie, anti-BB stuff in the movie, and just props, and Eytan was very specific about no, the politics come from matters of the heart. And it's why people connect to his movies. It's why that's so moving for me to hear that the Israeli army came to him for the sequel to Yossi and Jagger, because the movie was so good. He wasn't trying to make some political statement. He made a movie about human beings. And of course, that's great propaganda for the army. That it's an incredibly dignified way to approach that sort of thing. So there you go. Eytan.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. Because, at GLAAD, that's really what we work to make sure happens. We want there to be projects in media that ultimately will change hearts and minds when it comes to acceptance for the community. So this is exactly that. John, if I may come back to you, thinking you had mentioned, earlier in this interview, you really connecting to Michael, even though you are not Michael, but there were some similarities. What do you hope that people that see this film, now that finally it's going to be, available here in the States and it's getting more beyond in other places in the world, what do you want people that see the story to take away from it?
How wonderful the generational divide is, how wonderful it is, how deeply we don't understand each other, and how beautiful it is when we do see each other. Everything that's going on in the queer landscape now is something that a man my age looks at and wonders where he fits in. What does it all mean? Is it progress? And it is, of course, but the way these two people learn from each other is eye-opening and heart-opening in a way that gave me faith that things are good in our world.
Eytan, do you want to add anything to that about what you hope that the audience takes away from this?
First of all, I love to hear John talking about the film. It's such a pleasure. I mean, really. No, just it's about people learning things, from each other about themselves. It's things that we can learn from strangers, and then how we could be helped by other people. John's character does come to Israel with a lot of pain inside of him, and meeting this young, wonderful man and this wonderful city really brings him back to life. And that's a wonderful thing that happens when you meet wonderful people. They help you, you know, find better places, come back to life, you know. So.
Yes. Well, the film is so great. My mind was I was like, what happens at the, you know, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but I had my theories of what happened after the film ended because it was, it's so great. Well, both of you, thank you so much for the time today. Just a reminder, everyone, that Sublet will be available here in the States, limited release June 11th, and then video on demand July 9th. But check it out, June 11th. It's perfect for Pride. Obviously, happy Pride to both of you. And thank you both for, you know, all that you do, you know, in this biz for the community. And I hope to see you in person soon. And I am going to make it to Tel Aviv for sure.
Very good. Very good.